Hi everyone, and welcome to the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College Jackson County Campus Fine Arts Gallery. My name is Mark Poole. I'm the Fine Arts Instructor and Gallery Director here, and today I wanted to introduce you to Mr. Grady Byrd and his exhibit, Retrospective. Grady, welcome to our gallery. We're excited to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about your exhibit?
Well, thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me. It's going to be a retrospective, and what I would like to do for young artists and the public is to show everybody how I evolved. It's kind of the evolved nature of my work, how I became an artist. A lot of people ask how you become an artist, and you're still painting, different questions. So I'd like to answer some of those with some stories that I've got. Most of my work is personal. I don't do random, I do meaningful. And most of my work is I get to know the subjects, and I have some pretty interesting stories I'd like to tell along with my work.
Well, tell us about some of those stories.
Okay. This is Gautier, Mississippi. In 1952, I was 12 years old and tired of drawing on cardboard. No Hobby Lobby or Dick Blick at the time. Art materials were scarce, and a window shade looked interesting with a canvas-like texture. It turned out good enough and got me out of trouble with some crayons and everything. If the color looks good for you people out there, you probably should get a colorblind test like the one I flunked. I was told it's going to be a hard time for me to be an artist, mixing colors and all. So I decided to set my sights on being a black and white illustrator. I wanted to see the world, so I joined the Marine Corps. Out of high school, I had a scholarship to art at Mississippi College, but I wanted to see the world. So I became an illustrator of 11 magazine. Some of my illustrations was depicting former Marines who made it big in sports. My first one was the baseball great Gil Hodges. I didn't like that separation look after it came out, so I started combining smaller images with the main subject. This is Billy Mills. He grew up on the Pine Ridge Sioux Indian Reservation in South Dakota. His mother died when he was 8 years old. His father died when he was 12. He overcame racial discrimination, type 2 diabetes, and suicidal thoughts to join the Marine Corps. That's the cure for what ails you. And he later ran track. In the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, 10,000 meters, that's a little over 6 miles, he was an underdog because no American had ever won. When Ron Clark from Australia, the record holder and favorite, was asked about Mills, he replied, "I've never heard of him." But nearing the end of the last lap during the downpour, he was introduced to his back when Mills became the only American to ever win. This is Marine Corps Gunny Sergeant Carlos Hathcock, #1 sniper, until Navy SEAL Chris Kyle, different time, different place. He and a Viet Cong sniper had been stalking each other miles apart for days. When the Viet Cong sniper spotted the white feather Sergeant Hathcock arrogantly wore on top of his hat. With too much excitement and haste, he jerked the shot off left and low and hit Hathcock's spotter's canteen. And when he felt the water running down, he thought he'd been hit. His spotter wanted to move on after the sniper, but Hathcock felt that he was still there and waited patiently till he saw a shiny, sparkling light in the sun. He took a chance and zeroed in, and with one shot, his spotter exclaimed, "You got him!" And they maneuvered down to verify. But when they got there, his spotter was he couldn't hardly speak. He said, "Nobody's ever going to believe this." The shot went right straight through the sniper's scope, consequently through his eye. And as Sergeant Hathcock explained later, in another half-split second, it could have been the other way around. Now, on his second tour in Vietnam, while riding in an Amtrak, it exploded on a string of grenades. He and 7 Marines were trapped in a burning inferno. With most of his body in flames, he managed to throw each one of them out to safety and then get out. After a long and painful recovery, he became an instructor at the newly established Marine Corps Sniper School, Quantico, Virginia. In 1991, at a Marine Corps convention in Houston, Texas, he was graciously enough to sign the page with his portrait. This is Oak Island, Nova Scotia. The History Channel show titled The Cure, The Curse of Oak Island. It's going into its 6th season now with the brothers Rick and Marty. In 1795, 3 boys thought they had discovered the island by canoe and found a big oak tree with a limb sticking out that had rope indentions, and below the limb, the ground was sunken in, and that being real interesting. The boys returned later the next day with shovels and started digging. Every 10 feet was a thick wooden block, and finally they stopped at 30 foot. Later, one of them got a partner and they dug further. At 90 feet, they found a flat stone with hieroglyphics. It took 125 years later to decipher it. It read, beneath this stone, 2 million pounds are buried. That's $2,583. But at 97 feet, there's 2 angled ditches from the Atlantic Ocean that overwhelms further endeavors. In 1970, Daniel Blankenship put a submarine TV camera to the 212-foot bottom and saw 3 chests, pickaxe, and a human hand. He spent over $500,000 with no avail. So 220 years later, over 20 expeditions, and one of them included the young Franklin Roosevelt, and over $5 million and 6 deaths. Legend has it there has to be 7 before the treasure is found. But the TV show goes on. My Marine Corps job was later converted to civil service, and I was transferred to Keesler Air Force Base, July 1967. These are some of the assignments for Keesler News. I got all the hard ones: rape, child abuse, alcoholism. The most challenging was a Christmas cover with restrictions. No Santa Claus or reindeer, no baby Jesus in the manger, just military. The military is designed really as a peacekeeping force. So I started with that and added the military. And also, not to be sexist, goodwill to all. While at Keesler, I was lucky to work with Emmett Timms, best artist in the state, period, and my best friend. We opened an art gallery in Gulfport, and he was noticed by Nahan Art Galleries in New Orleans. And he let me tag along with my artwork, and they accepted it, and we joined the gallery in 1970 in New Orleans. I had to switch styles from illustration to fine art, so I developed an original technique that I call water black. I pre-soak an outline drawing with water with a brush, and I apply the ink, and I can control the shade by drying time. In other words, the lighter the sooner application, and the darker the almost dry. A good example of this is this whole background was done with one application. This is my mother and my youngest daughter during our last visit before she had to go into a nursing home. Lisa's kind of hyper, and this extended time could be taken with her hair brushing. I try to use different techniques and applications to the subjects. This is Gautier Blues. It's a Prismacolor black and white pencil and handmade bark paper. Kind of hard to work on, but it looked so good I kept working on it and finished it. The white is with white gouache and highlights. This is 1950. This Otis Wallace kept us entertained in the cotton fields by singing. And I was in the state in Missouri where I couldn't hardly get out for a while, and I kind of got the blues, so I requested a tape from Robert Johnson from my daughter in LA who worked in a record company. And her partner said, I don't know why you wanted to hear that. It sounds like an old man sitting in the middle of a cotton field. And even though it might not have been a compliment, I think Otis would have been proud. This is a sample of the bark paper. It's really thin and really brittle. But I encourage young artists to, for my philosophy is that for every personality there's a technique and application. So I can encourage young artists to try all the materials out there. I didn't have anything but crayons in a cardboard box when I started. Miss Stacy is a Prismacolor on color felt paper. The owner, Joe Seal, and his son, Brandon, got a break during the BP oil spill with cleanup work. The building behind is the famous Blue Rose Hotel.
Okay.
This is King of the Road. Larry Shelton is a retired butcher from San Diego. He walked all the way across the United States pushing a grocery cart full of souvenirs with his dog Mo he picked up in Missouri. I got to talk to him on his way back. He was a free spirit songwriter, and he's documenting his trip with a book entitled My Little Walk. There again, this is water black on oatmeal paper. An example of the oatmeal paper is just pretty inexpensive paper. It's got a great tone to it when applied with ink. This is Mother Teresa and Saint Teresa now. When I was in Tylertown, Mississippi, staying with my mother in a hospital room, I was trying to think about what I could do as my appreciation for the nursing staff. About that time, two of them walked in and they asked me was I the artist that did the two paintings for the prayer room. When I answered that I was, they jokingly said, well, what are you going to do for us? And I said, that's funny, I was just thinking about that. And they had come to wash my mother's hair. And when they were drying it, a big white towel, I saw a vision of Mother Teresa. And I thought, what a better example for a gift for them. I did a different version on charcoal, on tan, light gray paper to give to them, and it's hanging in the hospital there in a memorial to my father's and mother ministry there in Tylertown. This is water black also, and the whole background was done after I stenciled off the head area without putting much detail to it, and I soaked the whole background with water and applied it with the ink stopper from the bottle in one application. It turned out good the first time. I've made prints of it. I've given a dozen to each of her 30 missions here in the United States, and I've probably given away about 400. Really funny story. A nun from Tijuana, Mexico called me and wanted to know if I had any more prints. They were doing a center for her just north of the border in San Jacinto, California, and I sent them a big G-plate print, and it's hanging at the entrance of the center there. After I had Mother Teresa printed at Abbey Printers in Gulfport, ad agent in New Orleans was looking for a better printer, a more inexpensive printer, and he saw the print that I'd done for Mother Teresa on the wall, and he picked me as an artist to do Pope Paul, and this was posters that we did for his second visit here in the United States. This is done with color pencil on a watercolor background. This is Mr. Glenn Swettman, the last of the true Southern gentlemen. He is the president of People's Bank, and he is credited with saving the seafood industry on the Gulf Coast after the Depression as the only bank willing to take a chance on loans. The building on the left is the Magnolia Hotel, the oldest hotel on the coast. It was heavily damaged during Camille, and he formed a committee to restore it and move it down to right across from Mary Mahoney's. The building on the right is the old People's Bank. It's Elz's Hardware now. And later on we'll show you a close-up of the weather vane. His bow tie, I incorporated the witch on top of the weather vane with it. He was one of the most natural subjects I ever portrayed. The People's Bank commissioned me to do that in honor of his 85th birthday. This is a close-up of that weather vane I call Which Way. We thought we had the only one, and somebody up in Missouri thought they had the only one. So there's two of them, but ours has a lot better looking stand on it. It's a beautiful, not too many people can see the detail of that because it sits on top of the building, but it's withstand a lot of hurricanes, and just like Mr. Glenn Swettman, it was fragile, but it survived. This is a good example of a different kind of paper. This is an old-fashioned paper called repro paper. It's made up of tiny dots that when worked on and photographed and printed, it comes out automatically halftone. Keesler's Air Force Sergeant devised this communication equipment, and during the eruption of St. Helena's, he was the only way of communication during that storm. This is a poster I did for Unity Church in Houston, Texas. The theme is opening the doors of my soul. The pastor liked doors and I like dancers. So what I did was position the dancers in front of the store doors, and with their mood of their stance would dictate how open the door is, how wide the door is open. It's color pencil on watercolor background. A PR agent out of New Orleans got an idea to improve the oil industry of 10 oil companies in Morgan City to get them interested enough to support the major art exhibits at the New Orleans Museum of Art. So they sent me down to do research on the rig to do 10 of these. When I first arrived, they were looking for an Andy Warhol type. They thought I was some kind of safety inspector, but after a while, when they found out artists, they'd wake me up in the morning to look at the sunrise. This is my last picture I've done. This is called Flowers for Lucille. Some mysterious woman once a year, every day, comes and gives a bouquet of roses. Lucille has stopped about this time to go back and retrieve a rose that was dropped. This is done with tiny, tiny molecules. And it's done on bark paper, which is kind of hard to work on, but spraying it, I had to stencil off each area. And I spray it with color varnish to bring out the color. Sometimes color pencils is not that colorful. And in the background is Cafe Des Moines. The Cafe Des Moines is considered one of the most photographed restaurants in the world because everybody goes to New Orleans, got to go get some beignets. Okay, I got to give credit where credit is due here. This is Miss Audrey Iglesias, 40-year art teacher, principals, Spanish teacher, fantastic teacher, all these years without any due recognition. And she's going to be very upset with me, but since we're soulmates, she may forgive me. She saw photos I'd had of this in my files and wanted me to do it, and I rejected because my color blindness and hard-headedness, but she kept insisting, and she said she'd come over and take away all my pretty colors from me and give me some colors that was more applicable. Every now and then she'd come over and check on me, slap my wrist if I put a weird color on it, I guess. But I think I snuck a couple of them in. It might be evident, but all the credit goes to her, and she's just a wonderful person and my soulmate. Thank you, I love you. This drawing is a pencil and watercolor paper, and as I got started, it got to be more detail and more detail. I call it molecularization. It's made up of tiny molecules. You can only see it with a magnifying glass, which I work with. These two gentlemen, this son and father, was about the last time they had before he joined the Army. He contracted Agent Orange. First I entitled it Secret Agent Man, but that was kind of heavy, so I call it before GPS. This is in a little small town above Atmore, Alabama. In August 1965, I was deployed with the 2nd Marine Division as a combat artist to San Domingo during the Rebel Revolution. The original is in the Combat Gallery of the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, Virginia. Former President George H. Bush founded Zapata Company in 1953 as an oil company. But after the bust in the 80s, it's to stay afloat, they changed it for fish. I went out on a 160-foot freighter with a crew of 12 at 3:30 a.m. Give us enough time to navigate the Escatawba River, put us 3 miles offshore. Our quiet morning was interrupted with a message from one of the spotter planes. We got shadmen at school of Menhaden had been spotted, and the crew jumped into their suits and raced to the boats. Spotter planes flying out of Trenton Light Air Force Base in Moss Point directed the mothercraft to the find, and the crew manned a 20-foot Perch boat, so named as soon as I found out on my first ride, as we zoomed around in a merry-go-round to meet up with our twin counter to our clockwise. Just as I recovered my bearings, it all ended in an abrupt halt. We tied on to each other. The water settled. I could see a school of fish had been netted like a purse. The underground nets had been dragged in. The main freighter came to meet us, and a 9-inch vacuum hose that sucked up the whole catch in the refrigerated holes by way of conveyor belt. Every now and then the crew would spot a rockfish for supper and fling it on the deck. But no sports fish could be found by the Sports Illustrated writer who went along for a story about fish being caught. This drill was repeated 10 more times with a 15-minute stop for lunch, and by day's end, 2 living room size rooms was full of Menhaden. Companies use this Menhaden for a variety of products like livestock feed, cosmetic shortening, and the only FDA-approved source for omega-3 acids for protections of heart attack, disease, and high blood pressure. This is a little Crusoe. This is one of my first oil paintings done on a watercolor background. Later on, it was chosen to be in bronze on the Biloxi Bay Bridge.
Grady, thank you so much for taking the time to share your artwork with us today. Do you have any final words for any visitors or aspiring artists that come to see your exhibit?
Yes, to young artists, it's better to be one of a kind than one of many. What I suggest that you try to find your own style and technique. The way I did it was I studied every artist I could, and unconsciously some of them soaked into my memory, and I combined that with original technique. And I guess if you really want to be a true artist, my advice would get a day job that don't wear you out and work at night. For 25 years, I did most of my work from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the morning.